Hey everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew, and today we're continuing on with part 2 of my Christmas decor process. If you're not new here, you may be wondering, Andrew, where is your mustache? And great question, I did have to shave for the Nutcracker gig that I just did, but we're already coming back, so fear not. Anyway, in part 1, we did a massive thrift haul with all of the various accessories, ornaments, materials that I've acquired to make the Reissued Christmas happen. We also lit up the porch with some Olney lights. And in today's video, we're gonna jump in with a lot of DIY. We're gonna start with some DIY tree skirts and tree collars. We're gonna move into some DIY ornaments. Of course, we're gonna be doing some collage mixed media pieces that are kind of artsy and unique. And then finally, we're gonna decorate the trees, and we're gonna discuss some of the differences that I found between decorating a dark green tree versus decorating a white tree. As I was planning for this video, I had certain ideas about which pieces, which ornaments would go on which tree, and then when I started playing around and trying things out, they didn't really look the way that I expected. And so I thought I would show you what I'm finding works best on each tree so that I can spare you the trouble of making something or buying something and finding that it doesn't really look good on your tree. All right, y'all, take a seat, chill out, grab a coffee or a tea. Let's jump on into some Christmas decor.
First, let's work on covering up the unsightly bases of my trees. I picked up this laundry bin and this lampshade for $2 each at the REISSUED and Goodwill respectively. So let's see if we can make some magic. For the laundry bin, we cut off the little tip in the center to create a flat surface to drill into, before drilling a hole using a hole saw drill bit. This hole needs to be just large enough to allow the tree pole to pass through. We disassemble the tree to feed the pole through the hole, and then reattach the base. This would work perfectly if the laundry bin was big enough for the base of my tree, but no such luck. However, my mom had the idea to use some of my thrifted trim to create a little curtain to cover the legs and reach the floor. That's better. The glue gun is my best friend in this video, and I'm not ashamed of it. For once, it feels good to forego hand sewing or careful craftsmanship. We have a lot of projects to tackle, so quick and dirty is the way to go. Let's go ahead and light up this tree with $6 worth of thrifted lights. I gotta admit this was a tough process following the ease of my Olney cluster lights on the porch tree, but they came out looking pretty nice, I think. Since the laundry basket is totally see-through, I think it would be nice to do a really basic skirt to cover up the base. Let's use this ratty towel that I had on hand. We can use the one decent looking area to cut a circle a little bigger than our base. Cut a hole in the middle, and we're done. This is certainly not my finest work, but the effect of masking the base and unifying the look is definitely there. It gives a bit of a fake snow vibe. Let's follow a similar process to make a little skirt for my aqua tinsel tree. This matching aqua velvet that I had on hand is a great choice. This time I trace a perfect circle, a lampshade in this case, to get the shape. I cut it out and cut a little hole in the center. And let's hot glue another thrifted trim along the edge to finish things off. I think the natural creamy color is going to elevate the blue tones and help them feel more at home in my space. Now on to the lampshade. First, we need to remove the metal cross sections at the top so that our tree pole can pass right through the center. This was a bit of a challenge, but a combo of cutting with a jigsaw and bending back and forth with pliers got us there. Next, I want to cover the shade with this gorgeous taffeta that has a warm bronze to black shift. I iron it first to be sure that we're starting with a nice smooth area. Then I lay it flat over my shade and work my way around, smoothing it down and using a couple pins to hold it in place. So far so good, but here's where I went wrong. I wanted to go ahead and cut the fabric to get the excess out of the way while I glue it in place, and I left a little extra around the edges as I should. However, as I started to glue on the fabric, I realized it was wrapping a bit more tightly than I had pinned it, and that the positioning of the fabric was shifting, meaning that it was now too short at the bottom. My mom jumped in and helped me adjust it by adding an extra dart in the back. This gave me the coverage that I needed, but meant that I didn't achieve the perfect smooth look I was going for all the way around. I'm often figuring things out as I go on these projects, which means that the first try isn't always perfect. But yours can be perfect. Just cut the fabric bigger or wait to cut it at all until you glue. Another thrifted trim along the edges, and we're good to install. Once again, the shade was not quite big enough to cover the tree base entirely, so we propped the shade up on some spare wood blocks. This also helps the little tassels to hang nicely up off the floor. Base is done. Now on to ornaments.
Alright, so it is a rainy weekend here in Georgia, so I have turned on all the lights here in my studio. I spent quite a bit of time prototyping a couple different ornament types yesterday, and so I'm going to jump on in and show you how I made them.
First up, I'm going to be riffing off my old reissued coffee stirrer wreaths that I made for a video 3 years ago. These have held up surprisingly well, given that they're made out of cheap wood coffee stirrers that were a roommate hand-me-down from my NYC days. Let's repair a few loose spots to get these ready to go. Now for the ornaments. For version 1, which is more of a classic ornament shape, I start by gluing 3 sticks into a triangle, not paying too much attention to which pieces go on top or underneath. Another triangle goes on top, trying to keep everything symmetrical and equidistant. Three more sticks stack up to meet in the middle. This part is kind of tricky, but I found it best to apply all 3 dots of glue, set the sticks in the glue, and then work to get them to stand and meet in the middle before gluing them in place there. And repeat this process for the other 3 points so that all 6 sticks meet in the middle. After leaving this to set for a minute, I flip the whole thing over on my lap and repeat the stacking process on the other side. This looks great. For version 2, which is more of a star shape, I start with the same 3-piece triangle, and then stack up 3 more pieces like I did before. Then I can add another 3-piece triangle and lay it over the peak of the standing pieces until it rests equally on all 3 pieces. Now I can flip it over on my lap and create another 3-piece peak on the other side. This one is a bit fiddly, so I found I needed to play around with placing these pieces over or under the triangle pieces to help them meet in the middle. These ones are less perfect and foolproof, but the effect is still there. And we're going for quick and dirty, remember? I made a couple more of these, and then made even more at half scale by cutting the coffee stirrers in half. I like to do similar pieces at different scales on my Christmas trees to give interest and variety, but still with a unified look. After picking off all of the gross glue strings so that these are nice and clean, let's spray the ornaments and wreaths gold. I find that the cheap Rust-Oleum Bright Coat Metallic Gold is the best gold for this kind of thing. These are going to bring such a graphic, geometric look to all my classic decor. Now on to our trim trees. In part 1, I asked you all what to do with my thrifted trims, and someone suggested creating little mini trees by wrapping the trim around a styrofoam base. Such a great idea. But I'm going to skip the styrofoam and roll up some thin cardboard I had on hand. I measure the halfway point for my pieces, and then measure out from there equally to rough in a semicircle shape. I cut along my marks and use the center mark as a reference to roll my cone. A little hot glue to secure the cone shape, and we're ready to roll. Because my trim quantities are pretty limited, I start at the top of the cone and work my way down, since the top had to be covered, you know. But if you have plenty of trim and are not worried about running out, start at the bottom and work upward. That way you don't have to awkwardly hold the upper layers of trim out of the way like I'm doing throughout this process. The green trim was thinner and easy to spiral around in one piece, but the pink trim was thicker, so I opted to cut it into 3 separate tiers. As a final step, I pull these gold ornament tops out of the trash and clip the wire so they won't hang lower than the gold edge. I bend these open a bit to put on top of my trees, and then place a big glob of hot glue to glue them in place.
Hi. Are you the Christmas queen? Oh, you're so pretty. Beautiful. All right, you know it would not be a reissued Christmas without some sort of collage, mixed media, ornament, decor situation. So let me talk you through what we're going to be working on and the materials that I pulled that we might be using here. So firstly, we have these Nutcracker candlesticks. I mentioned these in part 1 with the thrift haul. Again, I kind of like the vintage look, but something about the colors doesn't feel right for me. They look a little bit cheap. So I'm planning to leave the color as is and layer it up, and then maybe paint a little bit on top of it to alter the colors a bit. Then I have a number of wood blocks that my dad cut for me. The larger ones are gonna hang like this with a little eye hook in the top and just be individuals. And then the smaller ones, he's already drilled a hole through the center. I think I'm gonna group them in sets of 3. They'll hang on the diagonal and just be like a little chain. The goal here with these was to kind of have that geometric look, but also to have kind of like a multi-sided canvas to work on so that I can showcase some really cool imagery that I found. And then finally, there are these little wood ornaments that I found at my mom's house. From time to time, when I'm sourcing materials for a project, I'll head over to my parents' house and take a look through what they have. And there are a number of things from their crafting days or my old crafting days that have sort of accumulated in their house. These were in that category. These were a project at one point that was abandoned, and so I'm gonna see if I can pick that up and finish them off and make them look really cool. Now onto the materials that I'm planning to work with. First of all, we have the old favorites that keep popping up. Wallpaper that came off the ceiling in this room, this fabric that was the lining of the denim jacket that I did ages ago. I keep wanting to use this on a collage and it never happens. You know I have my vintage patterns. I also have this paper. This was Banana Republic. Can we just talk about how Banana Republic has sort of reemerged from the ashes over the last couple of years? I don't know who their new creative director or whatever is, but I really feel like they're returning to the heritage of the brand and have just upped their game in terms of the aesthetic that they're going for. And so I bought some boots there last year that I wear all the time, and they were sent to me in this paper. And of course I kept the paper because it was a super cool kind of safari print theme. And I think that would be really cool for what I'm going for here. Another old standard is the W magazines. I pulled some fashion imagery, mostly just for patterns and colors. I have some cool kind of black and white landscape stuff that I thought might be nice. I love the imagery in this ad. I'm just not sure how I might break this up into smaller sections on the ornament. It kind of works as a whole. I'm not sure how it would work in sections, so I'm not sure on that one. And then finally, I got these 2 books in the trash at the REISSUED because that's what I do. This one is a 1950s children's dictionary, so it has a lot of cool kind of imagery and illustrations throughout, as well as the pages here. I just think, that classic black and white look is always good. Look how cool that is. And then this one here, both of these are just beat to hell, so I don't feel bad to take them apart. This is a book about famous dancers. And so there's, again, some illustrations and imagery in here that I thought would be kind of Kind of cool or fun. And again, just the black and white printed words are always a good choice as well. And it's nice that it sort of sticks with that kind of like dance theme that we have going on a little bit that feels very appropriate for me. And so the first step here with a lot of these wood pieces is going to be to pull out a couple different shades of stains. I always like when I work with collage to sort of have a base that's okay to work with to start, so that you always have the option of putting nothing, right? Like I don't really want to see bare wood, but I'm not opposed to seeing like different colors of stain on there. And then maybe I put something on top of there, or maybe I don't. It just sort of like takes the pressure off because you have like a base coat, you know? So I'm going to pull out the stain, get a couple different shades going, and that's also just going to tie things into the decor a little bit here.
I want my blocks to be different colors on each side, so I'm very careful to place the stain only on one side at a time. I use the larger brush to place some stain in the middle of the side, and then go in with the smaller brush to push the stain right up along the edges with precision. I also pay attention to which sides of the blocks have a nice wood grain, and try to change up the placement of colors from block to block. Now let's add some images. To create a template for each block size, I trace each block onto a scrap sheet of paper and cut it out with a utility knife and scissors. This will allow me to pay attention to the crop of each image to be sure that I get all the elements that I want within the frame.
As I'm working on these, I'm not opposed to using color, but I don't want to use a bunch of different colors. I think that in the scheme of a tree, it's better to have each thing kind of have its own color or one or two colors rather than having a bunch of colors on one specific thing, just to allow there to be a sense of balance and to allow each element to really shine rather than feeling like it's just too much and it kind of gets jumbled together, you know?
After I cut out a bunch of images that I like at both sizes, I started to group them together to see which images would work together on each block. Some blocks were focused on similar colors, other blocks on similar themes, and after a lot of rearranging and cutting a few extra pieces, I landed on 3 or 4 images for each block. I whip out the Mod Podge to apply the images to the blocks, noting which side of the block would be hanging upward and positioning the images accordingly. Rather than painting over the top with the Mod Podge right away like I often do in my collage works, I just apply the Mod Podge to the blocks, place the image on, smooth it out, and then let it dry. After they're dry, I clip any overhang at the corners and then paint over the top with Mod Podge to seal them in. I opted to do it this way to prevent any bleeding of the ink or buckling in the paper. Once the blocks are completely dry, I ran them across a piece of 220 grit sandpaper to wear down the corners and give each block a bit more of an aged look. I wasn't totally sure I was loving them up to this point, but this really brought everything together for me. I bought some small eye hooks at Lowe's for the large blocks. It was tricky to screw them right into the corners where I wanted them, but a combo of drilling and screwing them by hand made it happen. For the smaller blocks, my dad had drilled holes into them diagonally, so now we can string everything up and spray them with an acrylic sealant to protect the images and give the wood a more finished look. Now let's string these together. I picked up this seasonal grab bag at Goodwill for $3.99 that included these amazing wooden beads and this less amazing but serviceable Dillard's ornament. To string them together, I'm using a tapestry needle and this jute string that I picked up at IKEA. I decided that the smaller blocks were still too large to group together, so we're going to string them with the wood beads instead. First, I cut 5 strands of the same length to make my tassel for the bottom. Then I run my needle through a wood bead, into my wood block, top end first, through another wood bead, and then backwards through all 3 pieces, leaving a little loop at the bottom. Now I can place my tassel pieces through the loop and pull tight to hold them in place. Some overhand knots above the top bead and a few inches up create a nice little hanger. Once I finished stringing all the small blocks, I decided it would look better to tie another piece of string around the bottom of the tassel. I pull tight and then wrap each end around once before gluing it in place. For the larger blocks, a simple piece of string through the eye hooks with an overhand knot will do the trick.
Alright, so I'm running out of time on this video. I feel like I have so many ideas. It always comes out this way where I start with a couple of ideas and I'm like, that's a manageable workload. And then I'm like, what if we do one more thing and one more thing? And then suddenly it's a massive video and I'm running out of time. So if you're here for a reissued collage Christmas, stay tuned. That video will be coming to you next week, working on the nutcrackers and those little wood ornaments. But for now, I'm really excited about how everything else turned out. So I was at the REISSUED store yesterday and I picked up a couple more thrifted items for my trees. Let me show you what I got. First, I picked up these really beautiful bells. They came in this little set. They have a little bit of that like ginger jar hand-painted look. I have a lamp like this. Absolutely love these. What a find. I also picked up a couple more glass balls in this kind of olivey green shade, more bells, of course. This kind of like paper painted Santa ball. Love that. Crystal snowflake here. Pretty. A little glass tree that has that same kind of feeling. I got a couple of these like Thomas Kincaid little cityscape balls. I thought those were really nice. And then I broke my no glitter rule for these. I thought these were really pretty. The kind of creamy white color was gorgeous. Love the vintage kind of shapes on those. So yeah, this is how Reissued does glitter.
As a final project for this video, I thought that some Origami Stars made from thrifted silver paper and my vintage dictionary would add some more geometric angles and subtle pattern to my aqua and white trees. I folded and cut a pentagon template and then used that to trace my dictionary pages. For both the pentagon template and the star folding, I followed a couple of YouTube tutorials, so no need to reinvent the wheel here and create my own tutorial. I'll be sure to link both videos down below so that you can follow along and create your own stars.
So as I mentioned, my strategy for the trees, as it often is on my channel, is just to acquire a lot of things, make a lot of things, and then take a step back and look at everything together and be like, what's working together, what looks best? And so as I was planning and making each piece, I was trying them out in different locations, and I was finding that certain pieces really popped on one tree versus the other, or really flopped on one tree versus the other. I noticed once I put the lights on the white tree that the white really bounces the light around, so it makes the whole thing feel like it's kind of glowing, so that anything you put on top of it just can feel really heavy if it's too blocky or solid and not reflective. So I found that the best pieces for the white tree were those more reflective items or things that were really focused on silhouette or sculpture. The things that were kind of transparent or spindly or created a really nice shadow. I also found a monochromatic approach to be very effective for the white tree, layering some similar white tones on top to give some texture without giving that really heavy contrast. The green tree is a little bit more forgiving and a little bit more flexible in terms of decor. However, I felt that some of the darker pieces that weren't reflective just sort of got sucked in and blended into the background instead of popping off. Another flop on the green tree was anything that was really transparent. Last year, I hung my little glass candy canes on a green tree and they just totally disappeared into the background, whereas they really pop on the white tree. So on the green tree, I focused on a lot of the really bold red elements to contrast that green shade. And then I also felt that the green tree was a little bit more amenable to sort of the wood tones and the more natural looking things, whereas the white tree felt a little bit more in line with that kitschy mid-century look. The green tree feels like that more natural kind of classic Christmas look. This was my first time ever decorating a white tree, so I was really noticing the difference between decorating white versus green. If you have any tips on this process that you want to share with us in the comments, be sure to leave that down below. One of the really fun things that I'm thinking about as I'm creating my Christmas decor is how I can rearrange and move things around to different places as each year happens and I accumulate a larger collection. Different pieces can be grouped in different places. So if you have any thoughts about taking either tree to the next level for next year, be sure to let me know in the comments. All right, everybody, the reveal is upon us. I can't wait to show you how these look. I think we're gonna end up doing one more Christmas installment here. So if you like the way these projects turned out, be sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss the next chapter. Thank you so much for watching and have a very Merry Christmas. Bye.